Hi.
Hi, are you sure you can prepare for product based companies through this course?
Yes, sitting at home?
No way!
Yes, way. Don't delay. Enroll now.
Geeks learning together.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Geeks for Geeks. So before I start with the webinar, just let me know in the comment section if I'm perfectly visible and audible to all of you. This webinar is a very special one. I do not want any of you to miss anything. That is why I want to be doubly sure. Yeah, cool. We'll just wait till few people join us and then we'll start. Cool. So, as you all must have seen from the title of this webinar, that this webinar is going to be about school students and how school students can get started with coding. So we have Agam with us. He is in 11th class and he has already done a lot. So just let me add him to the stream and he's going to share about his story and like how did he get to know about coding and about his experience. Cool. Hi Agam,
Hi,
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good too. So, Agam, just for the audience, can you quickly introduce yourself to them?
All right, so I'm Agam Bhasin. I'm currently in grade 11th, and let me take the liberty of calling myself a full stack web developer.
Cool. Yeah. Just for the disclaimer, he's in class 11th, guys, like for everyone. Cool. So, anything else apart from that? Like,
I'd say that on the side, I love to game, and I also do like indie raps and
cool, cool. So, Agam, as you're saying that you're a full stack developer, so like, tell us about your coding journey. How did you get introduced to it, and bit about that?
Alright, so the school I study in, say, Andaram Jaipur School, Kanpur, right? So over here we have an event, a technocultural literary event called Comfest. So my first brush with uh, technology as a whole was from over here. So my brother actually used to make the websites for the event itself, and it was something which really fascinated me always, and it was something I wanted to continue. It was kind of like a legacy for me, which I wanted to continue. So I think it was in 11th class, in 8th class when I started my journey with HTML and CSS. uh, I only had a bit knowledge of Java. I'd say that was the introduction that I got in school. Right. So I got started with the syntax, and it was pretty cool when I made my first web page. It was a very uh, plain landing page. It just had some links to. I actually used to have a YouTube channel at that time, so it just had a link to my YouTube channel, and it had a photo of me with some basic CSS, no JavaScript at that point. Right. And then I got introduced to DOM and everything. Right, how you manipulate the document with JavaScript, and that was really fun. And then that's how I really advanced. And to this point, I still have a lot of fun using vanilla JavaScript. It's
Right.
just something that I like to do. It was something that I always like to do, and yeah, that's about it.
So I'm from the same school as Agam is from. So like when I was in school, I was not even aware about all these terms. I was like, oh my god, how do you make these websites and everything? It was so fascinating for me, right? So Agam, as a like because you started so early, there must be some challenges that were faced by you. So can you tell about the challenges that you faced like while you were getting started with all this?
All right. So honestly, when I did start, I thought that I'd have it the easy way because I already have a brother in this. But I really like it that my brother did not let me have it the easy way. So yeah, that's the thing that he do not. He never really meant for me to get used to spoon feeding, right? So he guided me a bit from here and there, but yeah, the main of problems I faced were getting the right resources, which I think most of the programmers today face, most of the people who begin their journey. And secondly, I think I did not face this myself, but a thing which many people face is the lack of motivation, right? Because a lot of people tend to follow a conventional path which they uh, get talked about and they see in YouTube videos, right? So that tends to get boring. But for me, it never really got boring because I had an event in front of me, Confess, and it was like now or never, right? So
Right.
it was a really cool and fun journey as I did that. And another problem I guess I did face was my academics. I did have to sacrifice a bit on there, right? So yeah, that's all. But I still have no regrets about that.
As you mentioned that your brother was like a mentor to you, so I think having a right mentor really helps for students like who are starting off earlier and something, right?
Yeah, it definitely does because, like I mentioned, a very big problem that most people face is the lack of a streamlined approach, right? So they tend to go from resources to resources. Some people go to MD and some go to Geeks for Geeks, and some people go to Stack Overflow. And in the end, it's just a big puzzle, and they're confused, like what is happening over
Right.
there. They see different answers, so sometimes they do tend to get lost, and that is something which also contributes in many people losing the motivation to carry on. So a mentor is a very big thing to have in your life, right?
Right. So I remember when I was in school, so when I used to learn Java, I always used to think like whatever I'm doing, like I'm writing a code and I'm seeing a website. Like तो मेरा code ये website में कैसे convert होगा? Like it sounds so silly, but these were the questions that I had, and like I had no one to ask to. So yeah, having a mentor actually really helps. So the next thing is time management. You, as you already told that you sacrificed your academics. So कैसे time manage करते थे that you were doing the Confess thing also, and academics also, and extracurricular things जो भी school में होते रहते हैं. So how was time management for you?
Yeah, so for me, it was actually a pretty big downfall because I always used to be in that top five positions till class seventh, and then I went down really fast because of all the other things that I started doing, and which was actually quite fun. But still, now that I'm in grade 11th, I do realize that it is about balance, and you cannot sacrifice that much of your academics because it is necessary in the long run, because it's
Right.
a given that if you're from a higher tier of universe, then you do have a greater chance of getting a greater CTC or something else, right? So yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's all about balance. Also, time management. We are giving a lot of uh, we're giving a lot of time time to discuss about academics and coding, but I guess one thing that most people don't really think about is losing the balance between their social interactions as well, because most of the times what tends to happen is that they cut down their social interactions and at the end up losing their social skills, which in the
Right.
future does create a lack of leadership and collaboration skills, which is bad in the long run. So that is something uh, which I realized because I did have a mentor. Right. So that also tells about the importance of a mentor and learning from their mistakes and doing things the right way. Right. So that is something which we tend to forget when we talk about balance. But I do believe social balance does also play a very big part.
Right. Right. Soft skills are really important. Like now I realize it that yeah, coding skills are important, but soft skills are equally important. Like unless and until you know how to communicate to another person, like because eventually, yeah, if you're working in a company as well, you have to work with a team of like several other people. So you should know how to communicate. That is true. Apart from that, Agam, suppose there's some school student and he or she wants to get started with coding. So what will be your suggestion to that person? Like what tech should he or she get started with or something?
Alright, so what's something really cool that's happening is that over the past 2 years, we've been introduced to the new education policy, that is new education policy 2020, under which it has been made compulsory for schools to start teaching coding from class 6 onwards. And while this may not have been implemented in the board examination syllabus yet, but most of the schools have included this from class 6, and they're using Python, Java, C++, right? So that is something I really like, because the government is breaking the typical stereotype of how in the past people thought that coding was, parents even thought that coding, tech in general was a bad influence, and how yeah, right, it was a bad influence, and how people who spent too much time were nerds, geeks, and uncool, right? So that's, I
Right.
think, it's a really great step, the new
So
education
untrue.
plan, right? Yeah. So I think it's a really good step, the new education
Hmm.
policy, because now we're seeing students from class 6 onwards, actually I've seen them in my school utilizing Python, and they're learning the basics. But
Right.
that is a really good first step, because that's how you get acquainted with the fundamental logic and the syntax. That's your first brush, and you getting acquainted with that. And I'd say the most important part is trying to find an interest, and then think about if programming is going to help you over there. So, for example, if you like cricket and you spend your time on any application such as CrickBuzz, right? So, think about it. Try developing your own cricket tracker. So, when you pick up a project and start working on it, then along the way, you realize things which could have been done more efficiently, and then you become aware of the resources, right? Because what I think is, if you just follow a course, then you think it's boring, right? But if and then you lose the motivation. But if you pick up a project which you're actually interested in, and then follow a course from, say, Geeks for Geeks,
Right.
that really brings your interest into it, and you actually want to continue with the course, because you were finding new things which you're actually utilizing. So I think that is what I'd say the best way is to start with any tech stack.
Right, right. So, if there's particular text, like what will you suggest to the school students? Because there is, app dev, web dev, and so many other things that people are doing these days. So, what should a school student do? Like, what is the right path?
There is no one right path. I'd say, like I said before, whatever you think has
Interest.
your interest in it, because we have certain platforms like Game Maker as well, which makes it
Hmm.
really easy for you to develop games with minimal programming, and you also have the option to
Right.
add code in there. But it does not require that much of knowledge of coding and everything else. So whatever uh, interests you, you can go with web development. If you have that interest, if you
Hmm.
know, if you want to build a web application, there are also games on web that you can do. If you have the least interest in cloud computing, and if you have any interest whatsoever in app development, then in India we tend to focus a lot on Java in school, right? So it's something you can really work upon. Start with Java, Android Studio, and then go
Right.
forward. But at the end, I'd say
Yeah.
it's all about the interest,
It's all about,
because
yeah,
that
that
is
is
what
really.
makes you keep going and not not lose motivation.
Yeah, and you gave a very good point that they should start working on projects because like students are not able to understand कि भाई वो जो पढ़ रहे हैं वो where is it actually implemented.
Right.
So yeah, I think as you also mentioned that you started with a very simple website wherein you just added one link, but that was your own website. So yeah,
Right.
yeah, that is really important. Apart from that, whoever is watching this, if you have any questions for Agam, please feel free to put it in the comment section and I will definitely try to ask him. Okay, just 1 second, I'll see if there are some questions. So just Yeah. So, Agam, what were the resources that you followed? Like, were there some specific websites or some courses that you did while, learning coding or?
Yeah, so the main websites I'd say I used, it was a combination, very honestly, right? So sometimes I
Hmm.
used to go on to MDN, sometimes I go used to go on to Stack, sometimes I used to go on to Geeks for Geeks, GFG. And there was actually a course that I did along with the projects I was doing. It was actually called the Web Developer Bootcamp by Cold Steel.
Hmm.
It's on
Right.
Udemy, right? So that I think provided a really good entryway for me into this. And it's actually a good course, right? So it actually brings you from beginner to intermediate level really nicely. So that
Right,
is,
right. So they can follow any course of their choice, right?
yeah, provided that they do have some thing they're working on, or that course has something which they're interested in, because many courses tend to have a project that they're going to work upon. So it's really
Hmm.
right to it's really necessary to choose that right course which is something of interest for you, because you
Right.
otherwise you'd interest in that course, like I said previously.
Yeah. So there's one very interesting question asked by Aditya that 11 12th में most of the students are like JEE NEET की preparation करनी है या फिर students सब उधर ही जाते हैं. So what will you suggest कि भाई ये करो या फिर you should prepare for it, because obviously a student cannot do both, I think. Like he
Yeah,
should
if you are
decide.
adamantly into
Hmm.
preparing for competitive examinations, then I'd say put a halt on that coding, but don't let that interest, but don't lose that interest. Don't let that interest go away, because because at least I think that we do have a lot of time when we do actually go into university, and it's a good step if you're going into a good university, if it's a tier one or tier two university, because then you're going to have the time over there, you're going to have more resources, and you can just as
Right.
efficiently, I guess, make progress.
So, Agam, what are your future plans? Like, you are also aiming for some IIT thing, or any college would work?
uh, I'm not particularly aiming for an IIT, because I'm not planning on giving JE Advanced anytime soon. I'm not planning on giving JE Advanced, though I do think I'll be preparing a a bit dedicatedly for the JEE mains examination. So my goal would be to get into a good NIT or a good BITS,
Right.
and a tier three university like we like Manipal, VITs will also work for me, because that's not uh, at the end of the day, it's all about that you put in, but having that edge is really important as well, right? So that is why I said that in 11 and 12th, I now realize I cannot sacrifice my academics that
Neglect
much.
academics. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, again, Aditya has asked this question that which language to learn first as a ninth class student?
As a ninth class student, it depends, right? It also boils down to what I talked about previously, what your interest is. Because
Hmm.
if assuming you are in ICSC right now, right, then you'll be having Java in ninth currently, because that curriculum has not changed yet. And if you're in CBSC, you might be having C++ right now, or you might be having a basic HTML CSS curriculum.
Hmm.
So I'd say if you have a passion for web development, then obviously HTML, CSS are the way to go for you. But if you have one for app development, then you already have a bit of an edge, because you already know the syntax. And if you ex- if you it's not about the language, see, it's about the logic, right? You can easily
Right.
switch syntax. So whatever drives you at the end of the day, uh, if it's Android Studio, then go with Java. Then we now also have Dart and Flutter into the scene, which are really exciting. And we also have Kotlin nowadays. And if it's game, then you can also go with Java, or you can go with a simple game maker first, or Unity. You can try Unity first. So those are things which I believe solely boils down to what you want to do. There is
Right.
no particular one language you should start with.
It seems so fascinating that a class 11 student knows so many terms. I feel like I didn't know anything in class 11th. I feel so stupid now. Never mind.
Thank you.
So the next, so Agam, is it like everyone knows it, or you are ahead of time? Like, don't be modest here. I'm genuinely curious to know. Like, all the students in school knows all these stuff.
Right now, I'd say that not all of the stuff, but I do believe that as the times are progressing, we are getting
Hmm.
acquainted with the new technologies, and everyone is
Right.
now aware of at least HTML, CSS.
Right.
These are not terms which they are unacquainted with.
Hmm.
They know that if there is web development, then there is HTML, there is CSS.
Right. It's really great that the coding culture in schools is getting increased. It's really great to know that. Then the next thing is, this is a problem that even I face till now, that how to be consistent, that people start and then they leave off in between. So how did you manage to be consistent all this while?
Yeah, like I said, it's all about an interest. I still have that Confess project driving me.
Hmm.
It is my last year, but I still have that driving me. So I know that I have to make a
Right.
website this year as well. I'll have to make it better than the last year because I have to be better than last year. So
Right.
that is something which keeps driving me. And for everyone, there is one thing which they should strive for. There is that one North Star they're chasing. That's what keeps you going, basically.
Yeah, and when you see that, others like 100 or 200 other people are using your website, they're going on there and everything, it
That's
feels
a big
good, right?
moment, right? Yeah, yeah. That's a very big moment. I remember
And
my school team actually posted a video of having 50,000 views on the website, and I was like, oh my god, that is something unbelievable for me right now. So many people have
and
viewed my work.
work, yeah, it feels great. And when at the bottom of the website you see your name developed by
Yeah,
your
that
name,
is
it
something
feels
I don't
amazing.
compromise on. That is something I don't compromise on, right?
Right, right. It feels amazing, yeah. So, okay, Aditya seems to have a lot of questions. He says that what should be a coding achievements till we get into college? Okay.
I mean, there is no achievement per se because it solely depends on what you're aiming for. Yeah, because if you're aiming for a competitive examination, then extracurriculars are not going to help you, right? They're not going to help you at all. And if you're aiming for a university which does look at your extracurriculars, then I'd say that you could have hackathons over there. You could have an internship, maybe, which I am planning to do next year, right? So there are a lot of things which you can have over there if you're looking for extracurricular based admission, I'd say. But if you're looking for a university in India, then I'd say you don't require as many
Yes, ma'am.
achievements, right? It does not matter that much. And but if you want to do it solely for your satisfaction, that's good as well. And if you gather up achievements from now, they will help you after university as well.
Right, right. And as far as hackathons you mentioned, I think there are a lot of hackathons just for school students, right?
Right.
They're,
We actually have one at Confess as well that we
yeah.
started in the last 2 years.
Hmm.
So it's
So
actually
yeah,
pretty
that is
fun
really great.
when more. It's not about the competition that much, but more about meeting the people that actually appear for it, because that's when you actually meet like-minded people, and those conversations are really fun.
Yeah, just 1 second. I'll be back. Yeah, my laptop got was not charged. Cool, cool. So yeah, and also one thing more I'd like to add, just don't do something because you want to, add it in your resume or want to
Yeah.
show it to someone. Do it if it actually interests you, because you'll do it for 1 year, 2 year, then you won't be able to do it for
I
more.
mean, there will be sometimes that you'll have to do something, right, which does
Hmm.
not interest you, but it is good to have it over there. But don't dedicate that much time to it that you get burned out. That you,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Do you have any clue about ethical hacking? He's curious about that.
I am not that acquainted with it, but I do know what it means and how people are
Hmm.
actually going with it. Ethical hacking and coding, I believe, do have a connection. You have to have knowledge of programming language if you want to be an ethical hacker, because at the end
Hmm.
of the day, it's about finding vulnerabilities in a system, and you
Right.
can't if you don't have the knowledge of that particular language.
Yeah, yeah, you can just follow some, course or something, as you mentioned for web development. You can follow a beginner level course wherein they'll teach that. Cool. Then the next question he's asking is paper trial as much effective or coding at a platform is necessary?
So
Basically,
he means
yeah.
writing on a paper, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, I'd say that having an IDE is the best case scenario because,
yeah. Hmm.
see, if you're writing on a paper, then then you don't know what errors might occur, because sometimes it's just how the language works, and that is
Hmm.
something you'll get to know only by executing it, and that is you'll not make those mistakes again by recognizing those errors, and that is something you actually cannot do on a paper. Because if
Right.
you are an ICSE student, I remember when I was writing my programs, there always
Hmm.
used to be an error that there always used to be something, because when we were using the cyanide class, and I read a line, I basically read a string into the program. It did not used to read the it did not used to execute the program, because and this is something that our teacher never really marked wrong in our papers, but it was fundamentally wrong, because it does not read the other lines, because there is an empty line over there. So that is something you'll only get to know about in an IDE. So I'd say ditch the paper. Get onto an IDE.
That is true. But in school, sadly, I'm not really sure if that thing still continues, but eventually you have to write it in a piece of paper and
Yeah,
submit it.
you do, but at the end of the day, that school paper is not going to mean that much to you. It will mean
Hmm.
if when you're going to a board examination, but it is not the only thing you're doing, right? Because school
Right.
programming is still very basic. So you will be doing other things on the side, and those are some things you cannot do on a paper.
Right. And like while I was in school, I used to observe that most of like that was one of the mistake that I did, that I wasted all my lab sessions, I think. Like I used to just go talk to my friends and come back. I think, but that was the most important time where I could have actually implemented and utilized my learnings. So yeah, that is something you guys should not do.
Yeah, I think that, because even in school, if you want to get better at your school level Java programming, then it is all about practical work and trial and error. Because when
Right.
you try again and again, and then you get the same error or maybe a different output, then you actually
Hmm.
realize where you did wrong. Maybe you ran a loop wrong, maybe you put a parenthesis at the wrong place. So that is something which you can only do understand by doing practical work.
Practical. Yeah. And also, don't get afraid of asking questions. If you don't understand anything at once, please ask your friends or your teacher. If you're like
Yeah,
afraid of your teacher, just ask your friends, I think. So, yeah. Then, how to evolve out in competitive environment? Is there competitive coding environment in
competitive
school these
coding,
days?
no, there is no competitive coding environment in school these days.
Hmm.
And I'm not that into competitive coding. I've not
Right.
solved any medium to hard level question on code chef yet, or any of the other
Hmm.
websites yet. But what was the question? How to evolve out in this competitive environment in the coding field? I Well,
I
I don't have an
I
idea
think
about
it's
that,
not
but
about competitive programming. It's like that there's so much of competition these days in this tech field. So how can he, evolve and everything? I think it's about that.
the competition is only going to increase with time, right? Because technology is the most of more evolving field itself. So you just have to get better than yourself, better than you were yesterday. Just focus on
Right.
that, and you will be fine.
And I think the main motive behind this webinar is about starting early, right? So if you start early, you're already ahead of others who are
Yeah.
already there. because as Agam mentioned, like people get to know about Java, Kotlin, and app dev and everything in college. So if you know everything from school only, you're already ahead of them. So yeah, okay. So guys, if you have any other question, please feel free to put it in the comment section because I have already asked all my questions from my side. Yeah, we'll just wait for 1 more minute. By that time, Agam, if you have any other tip for school students you would like to give, you are feel free to give. Yeah.
I'd say more about starting early. The It's not about starting early, but it's about starting right. If you start early and start right, that's a very big perk. But if
Hmm.
you're not making any progress and you started early, basically that's what I said earlier, right? Not having a proper streamlined path. If you're stuck on a thing for more than uh, a week or something, then it is time that you switch your ways, right? So you go on to a more streamlined way. Maybe think of purchasing a course which will give you the information in a more ordered way, right? Because that is
Right.
something. There are a lot of things that people end up doing which they don't understand, but it just works for them, so they put it into the code, right? I've done that myself, because I don't know how it happened, but it happened, right?
I
And
still
I
do
think,
it.
yeah, everyone does it, yeah. So that is the thing, right? The problem is when it gets too much of it, right? You're not
Hmm.
understanding anything you have over there, right? So that does not really mean that you're evolving in any way at all. So that is something I'd say, that start early but start right.
Right. Even if you're copying from Stack Overflow or somewhere, just know what you're copying and why is it working.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, how to get time, people are asking. I think he's already answered the question. Like, choose one thing. You have to sacrifice something to another, right? You cannot ace in every field.
I'd say there is a time, and there's a time for everything, because if you
Hmm.
are in standard 8 7, then you can sacrifice on your academics a bit, but as you progress and get into a higher class, then you
Hmm.
have to focus more on your academics, right? Then that is the perk of starting early, because you've already made strides in this, and now you're going on to what matters in that particular phase of time.
Right,
Because in a seventh and eighth, coding might have mattered more, because that was a vocational skill which you were learning, but now those academics matter more. So
right,
you did that in that time, you're doing this in this time. So I'd say that is how you can manage that time.
right. And some it if for school students, it is like some students do not, take CSE from ninth class. I think it was in my time at least. Like you have to take it in ninth and tenth, and then you take it from 11th and 12th, right? Is it
Right.
the same case right now also?
Right now, you have an option of taking. It's not computer science in 9th, 10th. I believe it's computer applications. If you take that computer application in 9th and 10th, you can opt out of it in 11th and 12th. And if you did
Hmm.
not choose it in 9th and 10th, you can still opt for it in class 11th and 12th as well. But then obviously you'd have to uh, work a bit
Work
harder
harder.
to cope up, because in
Yeah,
11th and 12th things do get a bit more complex, even if it's school programming.
right. So he's asked how to not afraid about the complexity.
How
What
to
do you
not be
exactly
afraid
mean
about
by
the
complexity?
complexity of a problem, or complexity of
Like
uh,
complexity of everything. Yeah, even I was unsure about that. Okay, Aditya, can you please clarify your question? What do you exactly mean by complexity? And then we'd love to answer. And yes, this will be probably the last question that we'll be taking. If you have any other question, please put it in the comment section and maybe we'll try to answer it. And Agam, are you on LinkedIn?
I am on LinkedIn, but I am not that active.
Active.
I have not
Cool,
set
cool.
up a proper profile yet, because I still believe I don't have those many things to put on over there, and it would benefit me in any way right now. It will just be for the sake of it. But I do
Right,
have an
right.
Instagram.
Right. In case anybody wants to connect with Agam, if you're a school student, please feel free to, like, maybe put your questions in the comment section, and like
Yeah,
maybe Agam will try to answer those. Or if you want to connect with him on any other social media platform, please feel free to connect with him. Complexity of the languages of the deeper thrills. What do you mean by this?
deeper thrills.
Not really sure. Maybe he's asking that, there are so many languages, so what language should he choose? I think he's already answered that question, right?
Yeah, I still don't know what he's trying to ask actually. Still a bit
Yeah.
confused on that.
Yeah, maybe he's asking about the language. So as Akam told, you can choose any language of your own choice, and it is about the logic more than the language or the syntax, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so we have taken all the questions. It was really fun interacting with you, and it's really nice to see school students. Like there's so much awareness in school students these days. It really,
Yeah.
it's nice to see
Can
all
only
this.
hope it increases. Right.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
still
I
not.
hope.
That's still not enough. Right.
Yeah, we are doing our bit. I hope the coding culture increases from school itself. Okay, one last question we'll take by Aditya. I want to take PCMB along with computer science. Would that be a good decision or not?
You're taking PCMB. Uh. Okay. So I don't think you have the option of taking PCMB with computer science. I think you would either have to sacrifice on mathematics or computer science.
Yeah, even
Just
I'm not sure about that.
do it on the side,
Slam dunk. Hmm.
because I think English is a compulsory subject that you have, and
Yeah,
you don't have the
and
option of
I don't
taking
think PCMB is a good choice in itself.
in itself.
Choose one side. Yeah. Cool, Agam. Thank you so much for joining and sharing your experience, sharing your coding journey with everyone. I hope it really helps a lot of students who are still in school and want to get started with coding. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being over here. Thank you for inviting
Thank
me.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys, for joining as well. I hope it was helpful for all of you, and I will see you in the next webinar. Bye bye.